All right. Hello, everyone. You are tuning in to a HeadCount live check-in. I am just getting a few things set up here. All right, we've got that comment pinned. And let's see. Hello, friends. We are going to be going live with Julien Baker and checking in with her and seeing how her quarantine has been going. I am Tom Bergen. I am part of the HeadCount team. And I'm so excited for this conversation today. So I am figuring out how oh goodness. Okay. Where let's see.
Hey,
Hello?
I saw you putting on the bowl cut right before.
Yes, I was attempting to figure I've never done an Instagram live before and I was
Oh, really?
yeah, this is my first one.
That's awesome.
But I thought that that was how you requested for someone to join the video, and ended up it was the facial emojis and whatnot.
No, it's cool. The first time I played on Instagram Live, like I am so alien to all like um involved, like especially video based social media platforms. So I was just walking around doing that grandma thing of like couldn't get the camera to go the right way, and all you saw was like my feed and my pedal board. I was just like, how do you work this thing?
You're like, that's not what I want the video to be showing. Come on.
It's wild, but dude, how are you?
I'm good. We're here. I'm Tom. It's very nice to
Oh, yeah,
virtually meet.
virtually formally meet. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're here. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and so it's
Whoa,
like super swampy hot. Um, which
bro.
I didn't know. So this I've only lived in Kentucky for a year, but like all summer was beautiful, and then like August hits, and then it just gets gnarly. So that's been fun. But
Yeah, dude. It was crazy. Here in Nashville, it gets really swampy. I grew up in Memphis, and I don't know. It might be me like imagining it, but it feels like right because it's there by the river, everything is so humid, and it's just like hanging over you, like in this like hot summer air. Yeah, I don't know. It got pretty brutal here. Um, there's like a heat advisory, so I couldn't run.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, how are you doing? So you're in Nashville.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And how has that been? What have you been up to?
Well, I uh, sit here in my attic and I work on making a score for a documentary
Cool.
and doing just a few other things like that. Just like, I guess they wouldn't be technically freelance, but just weird random projects, getting ready to release a record beginning of next year. So, yeah, that's what I do. And then I run and hang out with my dog. Um,
Amazing. What type of
that's
dog do
it.
you
Uh, we don't know. She's like a Heinz 57. She just came from the pound.
have?
She has like big floppy ears. She'll probably come over here and beg for attention at some point.
Oh,
So
amazing.
yeah,
I'll happily give her that attention.
dude, if I didn't have that dog to be like physically affectionate to and have like some oxytocin, because you can't like hug your friends and you can't like, hang out with people in close physical proximity, I probably am more like emotionally dependent on my dog than she is on me. I'm just saying. But
Yeah, especially like because that's one of those things where like I feel like I took hugs for granted before this whole thing. Big hugger, just like a natural greeting to most of my friends, and like it's been so weird because I've had some friends who are like, hey, like we're passing through, like let's grab lunch somewhere, and it's like I'm so excited to see you, and I
Yeah,
just want to express that joy through a hug, but like
totally.
we'll just be near each other.
Yeah, it's actually quite surreal. Like I don't know, the terminology of like unprecedented became very trite very quickly,
Oh,
but there is something like novel to the way that everybody has had to adapt and how everyone's accomplishing that. Like, I think one of the more unsettling things to me is that as we adjust to this being indefinite, the ways that people like restaurants that set up like saran wrap basically, like glass dividers, and everyone is in this sort of like whatever hermetically sealed chamber.
yeah,
And
a
that is
cryovac
how, like, I
bag.
was running and I freaked out because, like, I run with a mask on. Usually there's not a lot of people. But I saw this, like, huge group of people. And at first I was like, oh no, it's like anti masker people. But then it was like a child's birthday party where everyone was meticulously, like, masked. Like, adults had on gloves cutting cake. Like, everybody was really spaced out. And I was like, man, this is really sad because these kids are being socialized at a time when physical interaction is so crucial. And it's just like this global crisis taking it away from them. And it just made me really sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry. This is my
So,
TED talk on childhood development.
so to piggyback off of that, my like day job, I'm a fifth grade teacher, and so we're in person right now, and
Whoa!
I'm in this massive classroom that like the desks are super spaced out, and at all times the kids are wearing masks, and like I have to take their pencil and go sharpen it for them so that they like don't go across the room. And there's like no behavioral issues, right? Like no one's like acting out or being problematic because everyone's like spaced out and it's not like a normal socialized classroom setting. But like the one thing that I
Yeah.
have to just be like is guys like 6 feet, come on. Like when we're in line to go to
Mhm.
lunch, I'm just like, all right, like hey, six guy, and they're 10, so of course they want to stand closer to their friends than 6 feet.
Dude, oh my gosh, I know. And it's like, well, and there's two ends of that because I feel like 10 is young enough to still be like necessarily excluded from knowing like the weight of like what's going on or like the political implications of wearing a mask or like what that means. Um, but then, so one of my very, very best friends is a guidance counselor at Snowden, and it's like a middle school. So it's like I think he has done like fifth, sixth, seventh, all in that range. And in some ways, like they are way more hip to and receptive to what's going on because like they are growing and like finding their way into channels of getting information and channels of socializing as they're like still malleable. And so yeah, it's been weird to see how like compliant but like I don't know, like unsettled like everybody seems. Like all the teachers are coming to one classroom, like they all rotate, and instead of having class changes. And I was like, class changes is like where all the fun stuff happens. Class changes is like the
Exactly.
point of going to middle school to talk to your friends. Like,
Yeah. My one of my favorite things, so this is like my second year of teaching, and last year the middle schoolers at recess, there was a group of probably like 15 or 20 of them. Literally all year they play a never-ending game of kickball. So they just pick up where the game leaves
yeah.
off the previous day.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point in the middle of the year, I was like, do you restart and pick new teams every day? And they're like, well, no, because we only have 20 minutes. So we just keep playing. And I was like, okay, that's so amazing. But like, you can't play kickball at recess. So the kids just kind of like, we sit on the bleachers and
Yeah.
distance like 10 feet, and then they can take their masks off. So it's like a mask break and they can talk. But I'm like, I miss
It's
the
so
perpetual game of kickball.
bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's like there is, always this looming fear And and in every conversation, like I feel most of my catching up has a like this genuflecting acknowledgement before we proceed to anything else of like, well, everything is awful because there's a global pandemic going on. But then, and it's like, that's like hanging over all of the things we do, all of the ways that we interact, even like with this election. And, but for it to be like over kids, yeah, it bumps me out. I think about that a lot. Like, yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. And so, okay, you bring up the election, and we could open that can of worms now. We could save it for later. But I did want to talk to you about like you as a Tennessee voter.
Okay.
One of my favorite things like with getting to work with HeadCount is every 4 years people get really jaded about presidential elections because like rightfully so, there's frustrations with the two-party system, there's frustrations with like primaries. It's really easy to be frustrated. But I always try to make those conversations like find a little sliver of hope in local candidates that people are getting really excited about, or like ballot initiatives.
Sure.
So are there any candidates or initiatives in your city or state that you are really stoked about for November?
Dang. Well, I don't know. I feel like we just had a like local election, and so I'm waiting to see like
Okay.
how that turns out. I voted for Rawlings, which was like a huge, I don't know. First of all, I wanted to just like address, I think it's weird there's like a sort of a taboo around saying who you're voting for, but I think that that's something that I'm like, it doesn't have a bearing on like my evaluation of somebody else's judgment in the context of this conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, but so like I voted for David Rawlings. I really hope that I'm like on the edge of a tangent, like looking over the cliff, being like, do I go on the tangent about how I feel about all the candidates? So I'll spare you that. But yeah, I've been seeing a whole bunch of candidates that I'm really excited about in like other states, but in Tennessee, I don't know, it's pretty difficult. And I think the like people doing a lot of effective local change are usually like not within my district to vote. I mean, I don't know. Nashville, it's pretty divided. It feels like there are so many people here that are very invested in like community organizing for like, you know, taking care of wealth distribution and trying to keep people safe. And then there are a whole bunch of people that are either old Tennesseans, not like transplants that
Oh, Julien, I think you may have frozen for a second. We may be having some technical difficulties. You're back. You were frozen for a second, but it's all
sorry,
good.
bud. Yeah, sorry. I was like, I could feel myself going off on the particulars of like uh how wonky like just voting even in local elections in Tennessee is. I mean, I'm sure people feel that way everywhere though, right? Like Tennessee is in the southeastern United States, and so it gets characterized in with like Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky. But I mean, there are so many like rural Washington, like rural Oregon. It's like, the same thing. And so it's less geographic to me, and it's more just about like, how the system is structured to create divisiveness, whether that's deliberately or not. You know, jury's out. But I do like that you brought up like steering away from complete like pessimistic like attacking and dismantling the uh like the ins and outs of voting, like electoral college, bipartisan system, stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's wise, if very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, is it's like this fickle balance between like validating the frustration of national politics, because it exists, and
Yeah,
it exists regardless of like what your stance on anything is, but then also like reminding people that those elections do still matter, and like even if it feels like your vote doesn't matter, or you live in a state where, you know, a state's voted the same way for the last 100 years, my vote doesn't matter, or whatever.
yeah,
It's a fickle balance to like kind of validate everything, but then still push people
sure.
towards the good. Because nihilism's so easy when you talk about like.
It's so easy. Like, no, even leading up to this conversation, like thinking a lot about my where I'm placing my vote and having, you know, various existential crises about the implications that will have or not have. I think it's something that is a good practice even in the face of like apparent futility. Um, if only because it like exercises your right to participate in a system, however like symbolic that may be.
Yeah.
um you know, I just think, I don't know, it's like recycling or like prayer. You don't know if it's gonna work, but you're gonna like vote for your person anyway because it's not going to kill you to try to have some initiative. And it's also like, you know, I feel there's a responsibility owed to like the public in general for you to advocate for like more just candidates, even if that is on a morally relative scale, or you know, however we, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to
Yeah.
circle back and just like appreciate your kind of, I can't think of the word, like destigmatizing talking about who you vote for. So like HeadCount, obviously we're nonpartisan, and so we just want people to show up and vote. But I think it's like this really generational thing where a lot of people who are, you know, older, if you ask them like, oh, like which candidate do you support, or like who are you voting for, and it's just like, I keep my vote private. And I get the merits of that, but I also think that that can break off what could be a really great conversation or a great learning moment of like, okay, well, like,
Completely.
why do you support this candidate? Like,
Yeah,
what about them makes you want to show up and wait in line and vote for them?
dude. Yeah. Yes, I think it's weird because now with both parties, I think that it has become something that, because it was stigmatized as a taboo to disclose who you were going to vote for, um, like obviously like probably not many people outside of Tennessee are going to care that I voted for Rawlings, but like everybody cares about the presidential election, and now it's sort of become these like ideological symbol figureheads of what you necessarily believe um, in like all of your politics, which again veers into the like bipartisan system. But people are like really open a lot more these days. It feels like, geez, I don't know. I was picking up food somewhere and I felt like the guy I was making small talk with was trying to like bait me to talk about politics. And I mean, it's crazy because like it's not, I mean, Lord knows it's not just like Republicans.
Right.
And it's also like weird, it's weird to see people like making memes about Republicans being despicable and then having like so many questionable Democrats doing like messed up things. It to me it feels very like counterproductive, and I hate that. But it's like, I don't know what is causing, like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what is, like, well, I guess I could. It's like Donald Trump being charismatic and people being passionately opposed to him, people being passionately for him because he represents some sort of ideal or villain they want. So, yeah, sorry.
It
That's
no, you bring up a point that I feel in my head I'm seeing this timeline of like I feel like in history class in high school, like A push or US history or whatever, um, they always talk about how JFK's election was the first televised election cycle and how
sure.
that like really changed the game. And now in my head, all I'm seeing is like the timeline from that election to now, and kind of realizing that like this is what we've been building towards in our kind of electoral politics and how we view our candidates, at least for the presidential candidates.
Completely.
That's been like what 60 years in the making now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it has like the pageantry aspect of campaigning. I think definitely has become a lot more pronounced. I mean, like think about another person I've been drawing mental parallels to, even though like disclosure, I wasn't alive, but like reading like comparisons to the Reagan administration being like an upset of someone who, well, it's not time to trash Reagan, but yeah, it's weird to see like how much media is involved with this, and even like so catching myself now. I have like words are so important to me, like saying the exact right thing, um, because they're so codified. I feel like the more and more that I have conversations with people, like if I choose to use the word media and like what inflection I put on that, like, or what kind of news sources, it's like there's a sort of double speak of people trying to figure out like what team you're on, and it makes me feel like unsettled, and like that's not how people should be behaving. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think just like harping on points that I have been grateful that you've voiced is like young people are guilty of this too. And like we as just a voting block in generation,
Mm-hmm.
um I don't know, chambers, and like that happened to me at a college campus, like absolutely. And like not being in that space anymore, I'm realizing that the world is bigger than only being in a circle of people who have the exact same opinions and beliefs as you. And like
Totally.
it's cool if someone like respectfully disagrees, and like that's the key, right? Is like
Right.
realize the personhood behind this
Totally.
person with their beliefs. But yeah.
Right. Well, I think, yeah, it's when people align themselves so closely with an identity, and like if um if I might just like keep talking about like campaign like personas and things,
Yeah.
like Billy Graham, like, and the president, like meeting, I feel like infused, like reinfused religion into like the Republican ethos. And
Yeah.
so now it's like, you know, it's easy to get caught up into an echo chamber when you're young because you are reactionary against someone who is caught up in their own echo chamber of several ideologies they've collapsed into one identity: Republican, Christian, American,
Right.
patriot, whatever. Um, and so, like, I don't know. I can sit like here all day and tell you that it's not useful to have that kind of like super polarized um, conversational non-starter relationship with people who disagree with you, but I honestly like get it. I get it because it's difficult, and this is how I imagine people that disagree with me must feel. Like it's so simple to understand. Like, it's so simple to see there's a president, he's like allowing children to be separated from their families at the border. That is bad. And I think like ultimately you have to break everything down to the like motivation of humans to center themselves as the protagonist and see how does this person feel like hurt, threatened, like what is happening with them to make them feel like this is a necessary measure that they can decompartmentalize and justify in their head. And it's not easy to do that. You know what I mean? Not everybody has the emotional capacity to be able to sit through a racist telling you why he's racist. Like, you know, it's difficult, and it's kind of like I'm not asking anybody to do that emotional work, but that seems to be like the only way to have a conversation is to be super empathetically sectioned, you know?
Yeah. I was talking with my roommates yesterday, and I never Googled this, but there's a word about how every person is living a life as like vivid as yours is. And that we were talking about that in regards to something really not politically related, but it feels very, very true for that as well. Like you said, like kind of recognizing that everyone has had that like have taken them to where they are at now, as opposed to like it's not out of the blue.
No, sure. And I think that, I mean,
Sonder is the word, according to the comments. Thank you, comments.
What is it called?
Sonder.
Hold on. Wait, oh, mine haven't caught up. Okay, I'll find it.
Okay.
But okay, yes, that is a great, no, that's actually exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like, there are things like policies that people support and positions that they hold on things that make me want to rage. And the work, it requires like so much patience that honestly is half the time beyond me.
Yeah.
To want to like postpone your emotions and think about the motivation for this person, and it's not always fruitful. I feel like in the way that we imagine it's going to be, right? Like, I don't know, I was a very zealous religious person for a very long time, and I feel like it's the same way with like people soliciting or ministering to you. Like, when you go into a conversation with a goal, with like a set, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a thing you desire, like a agenda, an agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you go into a conversation with an agenda, it's bound not to be fruitful because you're going to like in so doing shut down so many like avenues of communication or understanding. So yeah, I don't know, that's perfect. That reference is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay, so to shift gears a little bit, I would love, if you're able to talk a little bit about the documentary that you're scoring.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I like wanted to bring up with you, that I admire so much about your work is like your collaborative nature, and
Oh, dude, yeah.
just it's I love it, and
Thanks.
I love all the artists that you've worked with, and I feel like every few months I'll see you pop up somewhere and working with an artist who I love that I'm like, oh, Julien is doing a song with them. Like, I don't know many people who are fans of both Touche Amore and like Matt Berniner of The National, but like I'm so jazzed that you've worked with both of them. So hearing that you're working on a documentary, just like I'm through the roof excited for you. So if you could talk a bit about that, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it's like not done yet. I think they're going to start like pitching it to festivals and stuff in October. I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk about, but I will tell you these things. I met the director, creator of the film, through one of my good friends from Memphis. They used to like work for the Flyer, and then like went to college in New York, and um, I met Madsen is his name, and he's just making like this incredibly moving, like I it's like I don't even know what to say the documentary is about. It's about like five things, but
Okay.
it's centered around like his hometown and experiences with his siblings and his like conservative parents, and around um, like their family, and it's really beautiful. And that's super vague, and I don't want to say anything else that might be a spoiler, but it's beautiful. Everyone go see it. It's called North by Current.
Incredible. I think
Yeah.
that was the only sell that I think most people tuned in needed. You know,
Yeah.
I think
Nice.
now there's 200 some people that are gonna definitely watch that whenever they're able to.
Dude, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually been quite crazy. Like, I was just talking to one of my friends about this, how I came into the process very sort of like composerly, and I had like a more complex, worked out modal arrangement on the piano with like complementary sounds, and he like gave me feedback about it and was like, no, it needs to unfold in like half the time and be like no notes. And now I feel like one of those people who, you know, when people mock Picasso and they're like, oh, my 6-year-old could do that, and then they try
Yeah.
and it's actually really hard. That's how I feel about listening to music that like music for meditation, cool study playlist Spotify things, and it's just like
Lo-fi hip hop beats.
yeah, except for oh god, I couldn't even begin to make a hip hop beat. I can barely do minimal electronic music. But yeah, actually this is my like I don't know. There's that, and then there's this guy, and I just make music for a documentary with those things.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Is this your first time working on like a film of any kind?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Madsen was actually kind enough to send along like some readings about like scoring for the screen. They were helpful, but yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. I tend to like overcommit myself, I think, to projects because I'm so stoked that music is my job that I will just be like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do all those things. Which is like yeah, I know. It's just like fun for me to do that, to be on a song with Touche and make like some movie music and then like, you know, do other stuff. It's great.
Incredible. Okay, so the documentary is one of the things on your docket. What about the upcoming album? Like, how
Oh,
has, I guess, one of the things that I'm really interested in, and I would love to hear you just talk generally about it, but like, has quarantine like changed how you write and record? It kind of seems like this is your normal setup. So like,
well, sort of.
okay,
Like, um, it's changed how I record like more in my songwriting process because when I go to make a record, yeah, now I guess I can say when I go because the last two records I go down to Memphis and I work with. Sorry, my dog is freaking out. Hey, chill. Um, I go down into the studio and we like retrack everything in a standard studio setting. But now that I'm in quarantine, I feel like I've been thinking of the console or like the digital console or like automation and modular synthesis and stuff. Well, obviously modular synths are their own instrument, but like consoles being an instrument and like a work of production being integral in the song, not an afterthought, like placed onto it.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I've just been like reevaluating how I make music and what it sounds like, which is fun. It's a good practice. I practice so much because I don't have like anything else to do, and it makes me really sad that there's no live shows because I was really excited. Um, the next record is going to be full band, and I was going to have Calvin, who produced the record with me, and my friend Matt, who's in a band called Forrester with me since I was like 14, play. But no more tours for a while, so.
Where, like, okay, so as a music consumer, I have started thinking about the venues that I like have always been like, oh man, I'd love to go to a show there, but I never have. And so like whenever shows come back, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna spend however much money and do whatever I need to do to get to that venue. Like, do you have venues like that you want, like you've been thinking about, like I need to kind of perform there?
Okay. Oh, perform there. No, I was just
Or
thinking
just go as like,
bands I want to see. Like,
yeah, who do you want to see post quarantine?
I want to actually. My bandmates and I were talking about this. My Matt and Calvin. We were talking about like how we just can't wait to go back to like the small room at the High Tone. It's like this really divey, like smoke indoors kind of vibe. And just be rocking out to like whatever crazy local band is there. Just like having the time of our lives. But no, I was when you said that, I was like reflecting on shows I missed when I took live shows for granted, and I was thinking about if I'm not mistaken, it's Manchester Orchestra at Cumberland Caverns, like these
Okay.
natural resonant caverns. I didn't go. Worst mistake. I wish I
Is,
had gone.
is that the venue that's like underground?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like in a cave. I think it's like Red Rocks vibe, like
Okay.
like not Red Rocks, but natural resonance and
Yeah.
like the
Super
architecture built
nerdy.
into the. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Um, I was a fool for not going to that show, but yeah, I think about it so much, like performing and just watching my friends play gigs, and just being in like this hive of people all hearing the same music and being stoked on it. Like, yeah, that band rocks. Like, I don't know, I miss that so much.
Yeah. I completely agree. One really cool experience that I had recently was AG Cook released like this huge album and just had like a Zoom release party, and
It's awesome.
it was so different, right? Like it's not like going to a show. But you flip through the Zoom screen and there's like 500 people and they're all just like dancing in their living rooms, and you're like, okay, this is hitting the same serotonin receptors as like going to a show. It's not the exact same, but
Sure.
for now,
Yeah,
it's cool.
it's like the diet version of a show, but it's still like something,
Yep.
Just like, I guess Zoom calls are like, they feel to me a little bit like the diet soda of hanging out. But, I guess for a person who historically has been so like curmudgeon-y about phones and social media and tried to distance myself from them, like having to rely on them for communication has made me so much more appreciative in like a positive way. Like less like screens are evil. I mean, I never thought screens were evil, but I was just like, dang, I wish I wasn't staring at my phone all day.
Yep.
Like, and I still feel a little bit like that because it's like now it's the only means really of finding out what's happening outside your like house.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, even though it is the only means of knowing, it's constantly like a fire hose of bad information about like bad, just everything.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so I'm grateful still, that we can at least have this a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing. There was a comment. I don't know if this person's still on, but there was a comment from an account that was small, bent, and ugly, which is a reference to a Crucial. Like, have you ever listened to the Crucial dudes?
No.
They're one of my favorite, like, I had a really big pop punk phase in like late high school, early college.
This sounds like it's in the ilk.
Yeah, and so they're this group from New Jersey. They only made one album. Like it never really got big, but I had a friend who saw them in a VFW hall and he was like, "This show was the greatest show ever." And we were 16 and I was like, "I'm going to listen to this band." And to this day, I will argue that it's like one of the best
Mhm.
pop punk albums ever made. And so I just wanted to shout that comment out. And then the other one that really made me laugh when we were just like having a very serious conversation was someone commented, "WAP, where are the pedals?"
That's really good. I hope that person is still on to see their joke validated. Um, here, if that person is still on, I think. Can you see?
Yes.
Oh, I can do this. Look, I went and did it. I got a like a multi-effects processing unit, and I hate myself for it because I thought forever I would be like a boutique pedal nerd, and be like averse to using like a Kemper model or Axe
Yeah.
Effects or something like that. Um, but I was playing a show. It was a long time ago, but one of my friends just came up to me after and he goes, "I see you pressing all those buttons like constantly and it doesn't sound any different." And I was just like, this is for me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
lagging around these pedals for me.
and then so then did you test it out after they told you that, or did you wait?
No, I waited and I was like, I tried because I think I go through like phases of being a purist and wanting to like practice my technique like straight into the amp drive and then wanting to like freak the fuck out with as many weird pedals as I can. Um, but the people at Line 6 let me try out an HX Effects, and I was like, I'm not going to use that. And then I plugged it in, and it was
I'll
awesome.
try it once.
Straight up, yes. And I was like, what? You can have all different pages. You can have a different pedal board modeler setup for every song if you want to and scroll through them. It's so nice. I did not get paid by Line 6 to say this.
And it's just like one of those things where you're like, there's so many things like that in life, right? Where you're like, it can't possibly be that good or that convenient or that nice. I feel the same way with I'm an asshole and I drive a Subaru. And
whoa, dude, no. I'm with you there.
no,
I'm
but
a gay woman. How are you going to call yourself an asshole? I want a Subaru.
okay, but like literally for years, people are like, "Oh, Subarus are the best," and I was like, "Yeah, okay, like whatever. I'm driving my Volvo S40, like it's totally fine." It was made. My favorite thing about my first car was it was made in 2004, which means it was too old for a cassette deck, but too
No way. My car
for
too. I have a 2005 Ford Escape. It only so it doesn't have a cassette deck, so you can't do the thing where you have the aux cord. It doesn't
yep,
have an aux cord. It only has
yes,
a fucking CD player.
yes. Holy, that is
We have
literally
the
such
same
a
problem.
specific problem.
It's so irritating, man. That's pretty good. It's like one of those things that like it's not worth getting mad about, but it's so crazy that you have the same thing going on with your car. Yeah. Yep.
So, anyways,
Go ahead.
I drove that car, and then bit the bullet and got a Subaru like a year ago, and
Sure.
it just like I've become that person who tells people that don't drive a Subaru how great driving a Subaru is. So I understand the feeling of being in that position of like, yep, my life just got significantly better because of this switch that I was so reluctant to make.
I was so like, and I mean, I think especially with something like this, it's loaded because there's like a purist aspect. Like, I want to still be good at my craft and not like settle for digital emulation. But then also, I feel like I think about this all the time. But like, well, first of all, just like people's aversion to technology and how it just like is a cycle that keeps repeating. Like people had like rallies and trying to like stop tractors from being a thing because and they would have like
Yeah.
competitions of dudes with like horses and stuff. It's there's a through line about it. I'm a through line fangirl. But yeah, like I was so reluctant to this because I had one way of doing my craft and I felt in some way, I mean, this is for anything, you know? This is for like politics, like I don't know. I find that people who grow up and feel that they have some sort of like adversity, like I couldn't afford a multi-effects unit, so I had to learn how to be good at guitar and get a good tone with like XYZ, or this is the old way, this is the right way because we've always done it this way. And there's no like integrating. And like, yeah, well, some of the stuff that you do works, and then there's other stuff that this great new device helps me do in a more convenient, faster, better manner. And that's true, everything too. It's like, oh, like, well, I grew up like not being able to afford shoes. I'm basing this on like, you know, my parents and grandparents walking uphill to school both ways and being like, well, why should somebody else get health care for free? I didn't get health care for free. And it's like, yeah, but why not then just start doing the good thing? Like,
right, like make change to
yeah.
the new pedal board, and you can apply that to everything.
Yes. I'm gonna make like a gear meme about that in Congress. But anyway, yeah, no, seriously. Hey, I'm sorry we got off on a tangent about my board.
No, okay, so I think like one thing that's so cool for people who are like non-musicians is like learning more about how it all works, right? Like it again, it's like anything, learning how something that we enjoy is created and like comes to life is such a gift. And it was amazing to hear you geek out about that because I know literally nothing about pedal boards, but now I do, and I know the difference between them all.
Yeah.
So
that's sick.
So thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, so we're coming up on time. Is there anything that you kind of wanted to leave people with, whether it's in regards to the election or in regards to anything else?
No, you know, it's interesting. I feel like that is, and I've said this to multiple like people who have had like an interview conversation dynamic with. They always ask if I have anything else that I want to add because I think that's a journalistic practice to open the door for like actually reporting the other person's like self-stated feelings. But I never have anything to add. Like every time I think of like a slogan or like a one thing, like if I had like, you know, my like 15 seconds on the evening news, I couldn't think of a single thing to tell anybody because I feel like every day I wake up completely astounded in a good and a bad way at how the earth has changed overnight while I was sleeping, and how it's now being reported to me in my telephone. And so the only thing, like, no, yeah, I don't have anything else to say except for thank you for allowing me to come on your Instagram live story and digress about politics and pedal boards.
This was so incredible and such a joy. And I don't know if any future Instagram lives that I can do will be this fun. You set the bar too high, so I may just have to dip out now. But thank you much. We're like we at HeadCount are so grateful for you jumping on this and, you know, talking about election things, of course, but also just music things, because that's where we exist, is between those two, and we're grateful to chat with people like you. So thank you very much.
Of course, yeah, happy to help, and thanks for having me. And I'll be around, so hopefully I'll talk to you guys soon.
Amazing. All right, thank you so much, Julien, and thank you to everyone who was watching. And make sure you are registered to vote, and if not, you can register to vote with HeadCount if you text VOTE to 40649, and then get ready for Election Day on November 3rd. So Thank you all so much.
All right. Bye, guys.